lots of fun things are happening. Today I want to talk through the draft of the bylaws that we're working on for the LCAs, and see how that how people respond to that. You know, there's still lots of things we have to nail down, but we're making good progress. We also have a presentation today from Denis, one of our new dev team members, and yeah, other updates on the technical front. Has Rao shown up yet?
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome.
I pasted the link to the tech update in the chat, and I think you should be seeing my screen. Let me just check. Okay. So welcome to Community Update 198. There has not been much of a change on the mainnet or any of the nets by and large at this point in time, other than that certainly the leaderless block merge testnet. Again, please go ahead, continue to use it and test it. Give us any feedback on that. As Greg said, Denis has completed his history, performance, and storage improvement work and checked it into the main branch. Denis and Tomislav, mostly Denis, will be presenting the results today. The new dev, another new dev, Stas, has joined or started full-time. He's been working a little bit in the last several weeks, but he has joined the team full-time from this week and is coming up to speed quite nicely on basically setting up our node, bringing it up, and setting up the network locally and things like that, so that he is able to create a local environment and test. And he's working closely with Tomislav. He's working basically inwards, from the API side of things. And he already has worked on this PR that's about ready to be merged. I think it's waiting for the last review about the method to find block hash, just given a partial string. And he will be working on a couple more improvements. One of them, actually, I guess both of them are developer-focused improvements. One is an improvement to the web API to convert unforgeable names in a bundle to JSON. This was an issue that was reported by Jim Whitescarver a while ago, so he's going to take that on. And he'll probably also be working on improving and simplifying how to get data from a deploy. That should make the developer experience a little more pleasant with RChain. So that's what he's working on. Will has updated the developer.rchain co-op, then the API. There had been an API improvement that Will has made in the recent past. I think the 0.12.2 version. He has updated that on the developer page so that everybody has access to that. Once all these changes are, and his PR also is waiting for the last review before it's merged. And once all of these are completed, we'll probably be doing a release 0.12.4 onto the testnet and onto the current mainnet, so that people can start experiencing the improvements. So that's the immediate release plan. But the main thing, of course, the team has been working on, especially Tomislav and NetZipper, have been working on the LLVM branch of the code. They are currently, like I said, there was a lot of design work done in the past, and there is migration of some of the code that was developed already over to the hard fork 2 branch. But in addition, right now they're working through how early or late to resolve conflicts and merge in relation to the finalization fringe. And the idea is to reduce the complexity, because if you try to resolve conflicts too early, then you may go back and say, oh, well, for example, rejections. If you rejected something and then you go back and say, well, that was the wrong set and we want to modify, we want to reject these other things instead and then keep these other ones. So that's a lot of complicated work and rework, if you can imagine that, every node is doing its own thing, and then you're having to constantly resolve what is going on. So they're looking at how, whether that can be delayed and how late can that be delayed without really stop. Because if you're too late to resolve these things, then the network is not moving forward. So they're working through that. They're going to be working through a few cases by hand first to make sure there's nothing wrong, that nothing is missed, and that everything is working as intended, and then probably going to the coding piece of that. So that's primarily what they were focused on the last several days. The other thing I talked about, the tech governance, and that we will be reviving that in the near future to enable the regular tech governance process and to continue. One of the issues that we're looking at under that tech governance umbrella is rationalizing the minimum flow and the best methods of implementing it. I mean, basically, it probably has to be at the shard level, but do we want to give some flexibility to whoever is participating in that shard to determine the minimum flow? And if so, how do we do that? All of that. Clearly, meeting the validator economics is one of the objectives, but we also want to make sure that the transaction fees are within a reasonable range, that there's not a cartel kind of a behavior. So there are some things there to talk about under the tech governance and figure out the best methods to do that. So this is just one issue. There probably will be other issues that folks want to cover under the tech governance, so we'll be doing that. But this is something that this minimum flow stuff is something we wanted to get a handle on relatively quickly because it has downstream implications on the wallet builders, because they may have to update their code and test their code so that it's ready to work with this methodology, whatever we decide is the minimum flow methodology. So that's the reason why that kind of is bumped up a little bit. But there are other things that whatever the community believes are priorities are things that we will be covering there. The other activity that I know there were a couple of questions in the members channel about the roadmap and what to expect. So I'm going to be updating the roadmap. There are a couple of things here. Obviously, we need to adjust the roadmap to where we are and what we're going to be working on. There are also, as we see more engagement with different parties, there are things that we want to put on the roadmap to, for example, one new item I would like to put on the roadmap is improving developer experience as sort of a milestone, and see what we can do underneath there. And it may be multiple milestones, but at least we want to see under the first round of that what we can do, because as we are getting more engagement, as people are trying to build things on RChain, and that developer experience becomes an important one. So that's one kind of a change. And another kind of a change is to say, can we bring some kind of spatial behavioral types, some early version of it, whatever is the simplest, that we can make that we can enable sometime in the 2022. Obviously, we have this Rolang 1.1 and a bunch of other things that are already on the roadmap. So I'm going to look through all of that and update based on what we know currently about the market adoption and the applications that are trying to be built on the platform. And we actually have a few sessions along those lines over the next several weeks with people that are trying to build on the network. So we'll collect the market intelligence from there and then feed that into the roadmap and see what we can enable over the next several quarters. So that's the activity there. I think those are the highlights. Are there any questions on any of this before I hand it over to Denis for his presentation?
I think everyone's excited to see Denis's presentation.
All right, so I'll stop sharing. Denis, it's all yours.
I want to talk about history. History store is a pointer base that is implemented on top of data store. A segment of this store is organizing of connection between rolling channels, identifiers, and data, calculating root hash, and storing of history change. The history store can store several such trees called history. One history is a snapshot of the state of our space at a particular point in time. As a basic structure for new history, we used radix tree. In picture, we see an example of storing 3 records. Every record it is key and value. We have chosen a simple structure to implement our tree. We only have one type of nodes. We see 3 nodes. Each of the nodes can contain from 1 to 256 elements. Each elements can be 2 types. It may be leaf element. In this case, we're storing radix value. And it may be reference or not a pointer. In this case, we store a pointer to next node. Radix value is stored in leaves and radix key stored implicitly. The radix key is determined by the location of leaf in the tree. The key is formed by connecting the prefix and number assigned to the elements of a graph. For example, first records, radix key, we store 1111. It is 1111. Next 2233 and 4455. And this is radix key. Also this is data in leaf elements. We created new implementation which has 3 following advantages. It is parallel traversing algorithm, which allows to use several CPU at the same time. Given the new tree structure, less nodes have to be modified per each insert and delete action. And we create new serialization algorithm that is 15 times faster than current S-codec serializer. We conducted experiments with conditions. It is just my regular PC. I used average, warm-up, random data sets, identical in all experiments. And we got the following results. We have acceleration roughly 1000 times for insert operations, about 50 times for read, operations. For delete, it is 200 times. For storing this data, we need about 2 times less space and 5 times fewer entries in key-value database. Also, we have linear dependencies on the number of records for insert, read, and delete operations. But we must take that there is also a dependency of the initial number of records. The more initial records required, longer it takes to modify and read. Now, for past 1 million of records, we need about 8 seconds. This is still slow, and we can improve these parameters if we rewrite Scala code in Rust or C++. Also, I think we can improve our read algorithm, like parallel traversing algorithm, and improve our collision resolver mechanism. Thank you for attention.
Nice, Denis. Are there any questions for Denis? Basically, the approach we took so far is to say, let's do the minimum possible here to get the most of the benefit rather than trying to, because at the end of the day, this the overall performance gain we would get is part of the bigger picture, right, of all the interactions. So we didn't want to go too far down super optimizing this. I think, but what we see here is a nice substantial improvement. And then after Denis tackles other priorities, he may come back to this at some point in future for the future work that he laid out. So that's the idea. So
I just want to add, with this new implementation, we also want to achieve a much simpler format of the history of the Merkle tree. So we will write specification that is much easier to replicate in other languages. So this is also one thing that we want to achieve. So what Denis mentioned, we now have only one node in the tree, and its serialization is much simpler. So this is why we can even use our custom serialization because it's super simple. So I was surprised that we will get some performance just by rewriting this serialization. So this is like a big improvement.
Yeah. And hats off to both Denis and Tomislav for the work. And this was all kicked off as a result of the interaction with GSI, right? So with GSI, we were looking at rewriting the tree in order to fit more of it on the chip. But once we looked at the basic improvements, we realized we could dwarf any improvements that the chip would give us. And the numbers that you're seeing here reflect that fact.
I have a question. Is this related to the capability of sending an explore deploy at a time in the past?
It is only insert records from history. To deploy, it is different time.
So basically, this radix key is the channel. This is what we are storing. So it is basically connected to any operation that you are doing on the node, exploratory deploy, and this is how we are searching for the channel. So this is like lowest level, and improving this will improve, of course, everything else on top of it.
Okay.
I just want to add that, like, this chart, like parallel inserts, is actually merging So I just wonder why no one is asking like 1,000 times. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, 1,000 times. So this is why this should give us the confidence that merging is fast. So
Yeah.
if you have fast merging and you can create state transitions on different nodes, this means that you can scale.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we are hoping that we will have complete implementation of the new history for second hard fork together with the block merge.
It's quite exciting. It's very exciting. Thank you so much. And Dennis, you know, I don't mean to embarrass you, but your English in this presentation was phenomenal. Really appreciate it. It was fluid and really quite professional. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Dennis or the dev team? All right, then. Thank you very much. Is Darryl here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you ready to give the week in review?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Here is the week in review for last Thursday, November 11th to today, November 17th. So last Thursday in the governance committee call, the bulk of the conversation was around the new LCA entities, bylaws, token policies, etc. Also on Thursday in Jim's work study, review of Roland crash course. On Friday in the climate and coordination call, we discussed COP26's last day, NASA's recent report on crops, some AR concerns from an AR pioneer, and the Decentralized Social Networking Protocol, DSNP, and Steve Henley talked about grassroots carbon. On Saturday in the RGov Smart Contract call, they discussed RChain developer cooperation crowdfunding for education and what members want. On Monday in the Casper stand-up, actually, Greg, I didn't get the summary of that yet.
Oh, so sorry. Yeah, my mistake. I can summarize it very quickly. So essentially, what Mike and I've been doing is working on the interpretation, the categorical semantics for the container side of OSLF. You know, since Christian and Mike have formalized the OSLF approach using sets, now we want to expand it to include other kinds of containers. And we're focused on containers that give linear logic semantics. Because it's easy to see the utility of linear logic. There's lots and lots of research on this, so we gave a version of an interpretation using Q categories, and then Mike wanted to improve the interpretation of the quantifiers. So we have an improvement of that, and even since then we've improved it even further based on discussions with Mike Schulman. And this is opening up a whole bunch of other avenues of work, because we now have a finished interpretation, so we can see what these new kind of containers, how they fit into the larger picture. So things are getting even crisper. I could go on and on about it, but I won't. Darryl, back to you.
Thanks, Greg. So also on Monday in the RDev member co-op planning, they discussed RChain developer cooperation website and bootcamp planning. Yesterday in the communications working group, we discussed coordinating with Edify. There may be some members who don't know about this, but we have started to engage with a small marketing company called Edify, who will be working with us on a regular basis.
It's actually Edify Content is their name.
Okay, thanks. Edify
Sure.
Content. I also brought up a potential translation company who I've been talking with called Kudo, who could possibly provide us with, well, they can provide us with real-time translations for our bilingual meetings between the Western team and the China team. And let's see here on this morning in the RChain active member hangout, we talked about PBWS, Paris Blockchain Week Summit. Raphael spoke of coordinating a post-summit follow-up RChain event, potentially coordinating it into an RChain meetup. And David Asamonie joined the call and talked about the state of Nigeria as a tech hub and the government banning crypto earlier this year. And that brings us to now.
Thank you, Darryl. Any questions for Darryl? Okay, thanks very much. Moving on then, I just want to point out a few upcoming events. In the beginning of December, I will be going, Attic B and I will head down to San Francisco to participate in the Foresight Institute's Vision Weekend. So there will be lots of luminaries there, including Peter Norvig, who is director of Google Research, as well as the Agoric folks and many other a cast of characters, I'll tell you. So that should be good for RChain, begin to get us noticed. And then subsequent to that, sort of mid-December, I will head over to London as a part of our aggressive fundraising efforts now. So more about that in the closed door sessions. So if you are interested in what's going on that side, please come to the Friday sessions. So any questions about that before I move into the next bit? Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Let's move on. So the board met on Tuesday. That was yesterday. And one of the things that we discussed at length was the draft of the bylaws for the RChain Publishing Cooperative and the Dazzle Cooperative. So I'll do a screen share and just walk you through some of the highlights, and we can go into more details in the Friday session. Let me quickly do a screen share here. Okay, can everyone see the screen?
Yes, it's probably a little small though.
Okay, let me change the fit. Is that a little better?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So one of the first differences, well, I mean, the very first difference, of course, is that the reference we were referencing the LCA legislation. So we're a cooperative, but under the new LCA legislation. So that's the first difference. Of course, the directors are the seated directors. But then in terms of the structure of the governance, we now see that there are in fact two membership classes. Per the language of the legislation, we have a patron membership class and an investor membership class. And you can see that the patrons join RPC, so that's RChain Publishing Cooperative, in much the same way that RChain Cooperative members have joined RChain, right? So they make an application, they pay a membership fee, and they sign a membership agreement. Whereas investors, they do all of those things, and they also invest by purchasing no less than X shares in the cooperative, right? So that's the key distinguishing feature between the two, is that there are shares available, and those shares are correlated to governance. So in particular, let's skip down to the voting. So the language that I've developed here is a notion of two houses. So we have a house of patronage and a house of investment. So the hop and the hoy. Each house elects representatives, and that's done relatively independently. And then items of business have to be ratified by both houses. And likewise, items considered during special meetings must be ratified by both houses. And then there will be additional powers for the president in terms of veto on certain items of business that fall under certain classes. So essentially, if you squint, what we're trying to do is to crib as much as we can from governance structures that have stood the test of hundreds of years. While at the same time trying to remain relatively agile. Currently, while I have given some deliberation to a larger board, I'm concerned that, you know, the larger the board grows, the more unwieldy the board meetings are. And so for the time being, in order to get a draft across the finish line here, we're keeping the board size between 3 and 9 board members. And then the idea is that the HOP will be able to elect N over 2 plus 1, so members, whereas the HOY it will be N over 2 minus 1. So if there are 3 members, the HOP elects 2 and the HOY elects 1. If there are 9 members, the HOP elects 5 and the HOY elects 4. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? Right. Moving on then, the key idea is that for the House of Patronage, for the HOP, it's 1 member, 1 vote. So if you're a patron, you know, by virtue of your patronage, your use of the co-op services, you get the opportunity to participate, and the HOY voting, I'm sorry, HOP voting is done by simple majority, so 51%, except in certain cases which require a supermajority, which typically will be 66%, but there are some cases where it will require more to ratify a particular item. Meanwhile, the House of Investment, for board voting, it will be cumulative voting. So what that means is that, you know, let's say that a given member holds S shares, and that there are board seats that are electable via the HOY. Then that member will have N times S votes to cast for whichever candidates they want, right? So they could put all N times S behind a single candidate, or they could distribute those N times S as they see fit across the different seats that are electable by the HOY. So that's it's a very different voting method. Meanwhile, for other votes, so items of business or special meetings, the voting will be just simply the number of shares. So a member of the HOY will have the ability to, if they hold N shares, they have N votes available to them to cast against a particular item of business. Any questions about that? In general, a simple majority wins in the HOY, just like in the HOP, except that we'll see 2/3 supermajority, or sorry, a supermajority will be required on certain issues, and most often supermajority reflects, the term supermajority is interpreted as 66%, but it may be higher on certain issues. So I still have several sections to update, but that should be done before the next board meeting, so that we can then have a review by our legal team, and then hopefully get it ratified by the RChain board within the next 2 weeks. Any questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question. Could you define the patron term?
Yes. So the patron class of members is most like the RChain membership today. So RChain members today, RChain cooperative members get 1 member, 1 vote, right? And they
Okay, so it's basically a new way to say membership.
the patron is a particular kind of member. You're a patron if you utilize the token. So for example, if you're a DApp builder and you utilize the tokens for your dApps on a regular basis, or if you,
I see.
right? So just the way RChain members are.
Okay.
You're an investor member if you and hold a certain number of shares in the cooperative. So the RChain Publishing Cooperative will issue two things, right? One is a staking token for that shard, and the other is shares. And the staking token is just a utility that is necessary to secure the network, right? Whereas the shares are just like ordinary stock, right? So that is recognized as a kind of a security. You know, it's one for which one files an exemption, but in general, it's a security, right? And so that's the difference between the two classes. So the investors will get multiplicative control on certain items, given the amount of shares that they have, right? So if there are 25 million shares and someone holds, 12,600,000 shares, then they effectively rule the HOI, right? For any item of business, they could push it through on that side. Now they can't push it through entirely because it also has to be ratified by the HOP, but they do have considerably more say than any single patron member. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah. I probably have to see it in action, but yeah, it does make sense.
Okay. All right. So one way to think about it is that it's like the HOI is like the Senate and the HOP is like the Congress, or, for our UK members, the HOP is like the House of Commons and the HOI is like the House of Lords.
Yeah, so it's like the power is sort of divided.
Yep. And
Yes,
there are
that
checks
makes
and
sense.
balances. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Any other questions, comments, concerns? This is your chance to give some input.
Yeah, when you say staking token, is that like for a shard, RChain shard?
Yes, RChain Publishing will be running its own shard, and so it will have its own staking token. Any other questions or comments?
Looks good.
Thank you. The document will be made public for general commentary in about a week's time. All right. Have I missed anything? Rao, Darryl, Steve, Lilia?
I just wanted to extend my thoughts to everyone in British Columbia. They're experiencing a horrible flood and a lot of calamitous happenings up there. So I just wanted to extend thoughts to anybody who knows people there.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Nora. I was wondering whether this made the news outside of my circle, but it's quite incredible. It was another one of those atmospheric rivers. It came right out of the blue. We didn't know it was going to happen, and I was in the middle of a call, and I felt it blow through. And it was crazy. It knocked over. We had a mirror that was propped up in our back porch. It knocked it over and smashed it. And we don't normally get wind where we are at all. We're in a valley, and it's normally not windy. So it was very unusual. And then we turn on the news and we find out that the main highway between our city and Vancouver is completely flooded out, and an entire town called Merritt had to be evacuated. And there's another city called Abbotsford that is also largely underwater. It's a real shock because no one was expecting this. So yeah, thanks Nora.
Greg, do you want to announce the new closed door meeting for the China community?
Yes, thank you. So beginning this Friday, I think, at 5 p.m. Pacific time, we'll be holding a second closed door session. And the reason is because this time is not a good time for the Chinese community. So the 5 p.m. time ends up being Saturday morning 9 a.m., which is more approachable by many members of the Chinese community. So it's open to anyone, but it's there so that the Chinese community can get an additional, another shot at learning about what's going on with the co-op.
And since this is a closed door member meeting, in order to attend, it's similar to the traditional Friday closed door meeting. So to attend the China community closed door meeting, you have to register and you'll get a personalized link, and that link will be your access to the meeting. Now, if you've already have registered for a closed door meeting, you're fine. You would use that same link. But if you have not registered, then there's a process that you can go through. And well, if you inquire in Discord, someone can direct you to where the instructions to do that.
Great, thank you, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Yeah. Is there any news about Arnold Foundation?
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in the closed door session. Yeah.
Okay.
We did speak about it last time, I believe, but we can talk about it again then.
I was expecting a demo of something.
Yes, we do have a demo. In fact, I even have a video, which I'm sending out to artists. So we can play that video because it gives shows off the final features. So the POC is complete. So we're now moving into a fundraising for our RPC, which is why there's so much activity around making sure that the corporate structure for RPC is correct and in alignment with our goals, and that all the pitch materials associated with RPC are all together, and why I will be going to London. So good. Anything else? All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate your engagement, and please stay safe, stay warm, and see you on the other side.